All right, guys, welcome to the DDM Podcast. This week we got a very special guest, Taylor Hoff, Pro 1 driver. Also just won the recent Klutch Kickers event down in Florida, and all around does a lot of cool stuff, especially in some old muscle cars and stuff, so we'll be sure to hit all of that. First things first, though, I want to get into a little event review on Klutch Kickers Round 2. This is the second event that these guys have put on, and they made a bunch of changes from the first round. Threw a bunch of money in at some stuff. Did the new live stream, did all kinds of different changes. Whether it with the scoring system, so they actually had a scoring system for qualifying and everything. So they made a lot of improvements, in my opinion. But kind of curious to get your thoughts on this as well. Taylor, on what do you think from round 1 to round 2 on their changes, and then how do you think the actual event went?
Well, from my perspective, obviously, having won it, it went great. But,
right. Yeah.
The event itself, we had a lot of fun with this. So we did the first Klutch Kickers event that they did for competition back in, I think it was December.
Yeah.
That was kind of their feel it out kind of comp, and I was able to win that one too, so that was really cool. But, there was a lot of things that they still had to work out with, just logistically, and they were still trying to figure out who they were going to have judge it for this whole deal. So they've come so far just with the track and the staff and, putting people like Nick Swan in place to be able to run grid and kind of head up the logistics of all of that. So I think each event, it's grown leaps and bounds just as far as, the layout and the flow of things and communication. I think you mentioned it earlier. They got the deal set up where they can announce and do qualifying scores live, so everybody kind of knows where they stand as they go, and you can make adjustments, which I think is really important to be able to have your spotter relay that to you. So this event went well. They continue to widen the track and kind of work on that as much as possible. They had a couple little issues with some asphalt coming up, but, that's things that are going to happen, and we have to work through that. I mean, even in FD, just this year, we had the same kind of thing happen at New Jersey where a big piece of asphalt came up. So, I mean, nobody's immune to that kind of thing happening, and we adapted and overcame it. So it was really good. 2 thumbs up for me, and the people are great. Everybody's really accommodating. The competitors are awesome, and the fans are into it. So it's really not a whole lot more you can ask for.
Absolutely. Again, I agree with all that for sure. It's a super cool event. Have you been to another competition event that's that competitive for so many different levels of car?
I mean, to some degree, LS Fest is, I guess, somewhat similar in that respect. There's cars, from my car to Human and Brandon Graves brought his 2000 or 1200 horsepower BMW out there, and then you've got guys that just have a stock 5.3 out there too. So it shows a little bit more, I would say, at Bowling Green than it does here. But that's probably the only other comparable event where you can go and take a relatively normal build and go out and compete with 1,000+ horsepower cars, and it's a lot of fun. Both events are really cool. I'm sad that I'm not going to be able to make LS this year to try and do the 3-peat, but as of right now, those events are on the same weekend as I think the Sonoma event was FD.
Yep. So I'm running into that interesting predicament as well, because I have to send one video guy to LS Fest and then one video guy to FD. So I don't know how I'm going to work that out yet, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah. But you mentioned the change in qualifying scores as well, where you're able to see qualifying and stuff. Does the way they judge right now make qualifying a lot more important? And I'm specifically referring to the 2 run, basically the one more run, one more time idea. And do you like that setup, or do you like the traditional go one more time normal battles and just keep going until I think it's 3 is the max in FD?
Yeah, so there's a couple questions in there. The first one I'll answer is I like a traditional style one more time personally, But, I kind of understand their position and what they're trying to accomplish, to have less, to not drag the show out forever and not have one more time upon one more time upon one more time. So I get that part. Um, I'd love to see it maybe where you do the style one more time, where it's just the higher qualifier picks whether they're going to lead or chase, and do that through like top 16, and then after that do a traditional style one more time or something. But we're all operating under the same rules, so it's equal for everyone, and we all know
Mhm.
what it is ahead of time, so we all accept that and move forward with it. And if that's the way that it's done, then again, we're all in the same boat together, and that's the way that it's done, and that's the way we'll do it. But if it was my choice, I'd like to have a full battle as a one more time. But
Mhm.
um, to your second point, yes, it makes qualifying very important, because in addition to, if you don't qualify well, you don't get to lead first, which is already a disadvantage. You have to go chase first. Then if it goes to one more time, you also don't, it's not in your hands whether you're going to lead or chase. So it makes qualifying really important. And unfortunately, we didn't have a very good qualifying score at round two. I was able to overcome it and,
Mhm.
do well, obviously, but it was a really big challenge because
You did
I
not
had to
have an
chase.
easy road to the finals,
No,
that's for sure.
no, I really feel like we kind of went through the gauntlet of the hardest bracket you could kind of go through there. Just FD guy, or super talented kids, just like Nick Castleberry. He's not somebody that's running FD, but obviously tremendous talent. He's very familiar with that racetrack, very familiar with his car. So running through people like that, and Kevin and Alec and Nick Novak, I mean, I don't know that it really could have got harder as far as the draw is there. And then to compound that, we didn't qualify good, so I had to chase every time first, except for my top 32 battle. So you gotta push it really hard when you have to chase first, because you don't know what they're gonna do behind you.
Right. Would you say this is one of the most competitive fields you've seen outside of FD?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is had some really competitive events at LS Fest and some places like that. But yeah, I think this is probably more competitive than LS Fest, even in the last two events that I ran out there. I consider this, between the competition and obviously the money that we won, this is the biggest win of my career so far.
Wow. That's saying something.
I
Yeah.
think because that track is so simple too, it really magnifies how precise you have to be. You
Mm-hmm.
know, people
Yeah.
think a more complicated, bigger, faster track makes it easier, but this actually magnifies it because it is so tight and it is so close, and it's at a slower speed. The mistakes are really evident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing when I was talking to Reese when we were first talking about the first event, is that there's a lot of places to mess up. I think there's four transitions.
Yeah, I
It's,
think that's, yeah, one, two, yeah, four
yeah, four
transitions. So
transitions. And I mean, timing is everything at this track. There's not really much grip advantage, and if you cut corners, it's pretty obvious. So, I mean, honestly, it's a lot of. I've seen a lot of good follow drivers, but a lot of the good follow drivers sometimes will struggle with their lead runs, and that's what kills them at this track. And so that's why certain drivers seem to be doing really well. Is they've figured out that outside line that the judges want to see, and then they're able to still continue it with a decent follow, which it seems like. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is this like a? Would you say this is kind of an easy track to follow in, like tandem in, um, or I don't know. There's a complicated question because there's a lot of places to mess up. It looks like.
so yes and no. I mean, there's it's slower, so that slower naturally makes things for me in drifting easier. It makes mistakes easier to come back from, and it allows you to catch up a little easier in certain situations if you get behind. But there are more transitions, so there's more opportunities for those mistakes to happen. So it's kind of a give and take kind of thing. In some ways, it makes it easier. In some ways, it makes it harder. It's a challenging venue because it is a great equalizer. I think it's kind of well established now in people's mindsets that bringing a car that's 1,000 horsepower is not going to give you this enormous advantage over a car that's 400 horsepower, because I simply can't be in the throttle as long and as hard as I'd like to be. I've said a couple of times to some of my friends and folks around the track that I think if I had my S13 that I did in Pro-Am, with 600 horsepower, maybe, I think a S13, the way the wheelbase is set up, and if you just put S13 LS with Wise Fab on it, either nitrous or supercharged, 600 horsepower, I think I could beat myself in the Cadillac. It's just a more equipped car for that style setup because the transitions are so fast, and it's such a tight course. I would love to get to run around the track in one of those just to see what it's like.
You kind of answered one of the questions I was going to ask. So if you had to build a car for Klutch Kickers, other than the Cadillac, what would the specs be, or how would you spec it out and stuff like that? You kind of already went into it. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Tire width, tire compound. This is kind of for the people who are thinking about jumping in, and they, what should I do? If you had to build a car specifically for it, you could go a little bit in depth. How would you configure it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest, and I'll probably get people that don't like me because of this comment, but I'm really not that big of a 240 fan, even though I had.
Neither am I, and I have.
Yeah, I had two of them. I had, an S13 in Pro-Am, and I had an S14 for Pro-Am in my first year of Pro 2. But it was kind of a means to an end more than I just love 240s. There's just so much aftermarket availability for them, and, they're easy to drive in relative terms to many other vehicles. So I bought one of those and built it because it was easy and it's the cheapest option. When I decided to build the Cadillac, it was for a reason. I wanted to go do something different that had never been done before to kind of get some notoriety and, be able to attract a different style sponsor, and that worked for me. So I love my car. I wouldn't change anything about it. And for most events, I wouldn't rather have anything else. And, it's obviously great for this too, but the wheelbase, I feel like hurts me a little bit. The weight, which the car doesn't weigh a ton. It weighs less than most people think it does with it being a bigger car. It's 240 with me in it. But to have a S13 with Wise Fab and 500, 600 horsepower that you could get down to 2,700 pounds, 2,800 pounds, I mean, it's an advantage.
Yeah, I was thinking like an E36 would probably be my car of choice for the same reason. I could probably get it down 2,700 pounds. And they have a lot of Ford bite naturally built into them, so you don't got to play the geometry.
So, is there anything that in this event that you would change other than the normal one more times, or anything advice for them to help them continue for their events to run even more smoothly, or ideas to help market the event, stuff like that you've seen work?
Man, I mean, I think it's just got to grow organically. I think, obviously getting more people there is good for everyone. They've already done, seemingly from my perspective, a good job of getting partners on board and trying to get as many people out as they can. I just think trying to continue to get it out there. Me personally, I would love to try a different venue with this series. Not that this one's not fun, but I think over the course of, by the time we're done with 5 events, some people might be, drivers and fans alike, might be anxious to see what this same series looks like on a different track, even if it's another small track, but just another track. What I'd be open to really anything on that, but I like to be able to drive on different courses and be able to adapt to new things, and it's challenging for me, and I think it'd be challenging for everyone else, so that would be my only request, I guess, moving forward, is maybe look at doing some other venues as well.
Yeah, I was even thinking it'd be cool to see them try the existing layout, maybe in reverse or something.
Yeah,
even that.
The only issue with that is just running cars efficiently. Unfortunately, the way the track's set up, there's only really one efficient way to run the cars right now.
Yeah.
But that's something I kind of got to in the first podcast about this was you guys are able to practice a lot. And even in the short amount of time you guys do get to practice, it seems like you guys get a lot of laps in still.
Yeah, we do, and the track's pretty easy on tires too, which is cool. But yeah, we get a lot of practice laps. I feel like they broke it up well. Nick knows what he's doing with running events, and Zach helping him, and just everybody seems to be a pretty cohesive unit that is running there. It doesn't seem to be like a bunch of bickering amongst each other and how things should be done. And in general, I think it's going pretty well. There's some grid challenges that they have. They're just with it being single lane and whatnot, but I'm sure over time that stuff will get sorted out.
Right. Growing pains.
Yeah. So would you recommend this event to other drivers that are looking to have some fun?
Yeah, I'd recommend it to, anybody, whether it's, somebody just getting into it and wanting to get their feet wet in competition or somebody else at the pro level. It's a good time, and it helps hone your skills against all different levels of drivers and all different levels of cars. When I go to chase, I don't know, like what I was talking about, like a stock SR20 240, it's a lot different than going to chase Nick Novak in the finals, with another 1,000+ horsepower car. You have to be able to adapt to both of those styles of cars and styles of driving, which is unique. You don't go to many places where you may have to go against an SR20 with 200 horsepower and a BMW with 1,000. It's just not that common.
Right. And then Alec Hollandale right after that.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I mean that was something I tried to hit with talking about in the first one was like, where else are you going to get to drive with these people? Like where else are you going to get a chance to drive with like a bunch of Pro 1 and Pro 2 drivers, and this is kind of cool where it's an avenue that you can literally drive with anyone, and you never know what's going to happen. It seems like this track is a lot like that too, where you can have a good day and you can have a bad day, and there's very, very easy ways to mess up. And as you've seen, the cool thing I really liked was the top 5 from round 1 and the top 5 from round 2, all different people. There was not one person that made top 5 in the first round that made top 5 in the second round, which kind of just goes to my point, which is what I felt like in the first round, that it's really to whoever has the best day is going to win. It's not entirely about skill. It's a lot about skill. But there's also some luck. I mean, something can break, first round. Did you blow the motor in the first round?
Yeah, spun a rod bearing going into top 8. So that was a brutal heartbreak. We felt like we had a really good chance at competing for a win in that first one, but didn't get a chance to prove it. But that's part of it. Like you said, there's so many things that have to go right to even get to the finals and get a chance to go for the win on an event like this, especially when you have to go through top 64. We were fortunate enough. We didn't qualify good, but we qualified good enough to get a bye. But when you got to go through a 64, a 32, a 16, a 8, 4, and a 2, that's a lot of opportunities to have something happen, whether it's, having a mechanical break, you forget to do something. I've seen people forget to put gas in the car. But there's so many things that can go wrong. And then you get out on the track and it's so easy to make a mistake behind somebody, get lost in the smoke, miss time a transition, dip a right rear off going through that outer zone right by the judges, and it pulls the left rear off too, and you got 2 tires off and you got an incomplete. It's just a lot of opportunities to have an upset. And, it happened in the first round, it happened in this round, and it's not that overall I would rank, a certain driver over another one on any given day, but, things happen. Kevin, for instance, we went against him, and I forget what he had happen. I think it was something with the tires, but it got slick and he spun out, which is extremely uncharacteristic of Kevin Lawrence. You know, he doesn't make those mistakes, and you know, we got a pretty good break there.
Right.
When I went to lead, you know, as long as I had a solid lead and the car didn't break, I was going to move on. But that ended up being a pretty fun battle. But it's those kind of things. It's so easy to make those mistakes. So it felt very fortunate to have a day go our way. You know, A to Z right from the beginning.
Yep. Yeah, Garrett spinning both rounds. He doesn't spin either.
Right. His car was broken, I think. They never fixed his car right after he got hit, is what I was told.
They put the Ackerman spacer on wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the Ackerman was set backwards on one wheel.
Yep, it's easy to do.
Yep.
Get in a hurry.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's anything can happen. Is there any big setup changes you have to make to your car from between running Pro 1 and the FD setup to doing clutch kickers?
I've been making a lot of changes with my car this off season anyway, so I can't really answer that question accurately because I've made so many changes to the car since Irwindale in preparation for Formula Drift. So my thought process has been get the car to run as good as possible, as fast as possible, and gripped up as possible here, and then take that setup and try and expand upon it when I get to the first Formula Drift event. But I've been using this as kind of not a testing ground, because this is a really important event. Like I said, this is, you know, what I view as my biggest moment in my career. So it's not a testing event, but it's certainly something that I can use to develop for the next events with Klutch Kickers or the next events with FD or whatever else we go to. So just continuing to develop the car. But I actually think I'm going to end up with a pretty similar setup in the end of here and at Formula Drift, just not in the same gear.
Yeah. FD seems like it's going through it seems like every couple of years the FD cars change drastically. And the setups people are running change, and the alignments and the way the cars drive change. And it seems like it's at that wave again now, where everybody's kind of changing how the cars drive again a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we went through the horsepower wars, you know, after Daigo came the first time in 2012, and everybody had to have 1,000 or 1,100 or 1,200 horsepower or whatever it was. And I think everybody kind of figured out that while that's good, they weren't making the cars last anymore, and everything kept breaking. And now it became a battle of attrition, and now we're backing them down a little bit. I don't think if you went up and down the pit in any FD event, there's probably not a handful of guys that are actually competing in their battles at over 1,000 horsepower. I think your general guys
800.
Yeah, which is still a lot. You know, don't get me wrong, that's still a lot of power, and you still need it, and you're going to use it. But it's a significant difference from being up over 4 digits when you're trying to keep axles and diffs and transmissions under the car.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a good topic to talk about once we get into the podcast section of when we talk about Taylor. So that'll be a cool conversation just to have. All right. You got anything left on the Klutch Kickers event? So we can wrap this one up.
Yeah. So, what are some of the disadvantages of bringing a car like yours to Klutch Kickers? Like, what have you noticed might be your biggest Achilles heel in the big, powerful car?
2 things. One is the wheelbase, because it doesn't transition as fast as I would like for it to in a tight track like that. My car's got a 109-inch wheelbase. You know, in comparison, Taylor Ray's Miata, I think, is 93 inches, and a regular S13 is 97. So it's kind of in between there. But so I'm sure I have the longest wheelbase car there. But so that's a disadvantage. But the other one, the biggest challenge is chasing a car that's significantly slower. You know, I think for the most part, if you've got a car that you're familiar with and set up good and all that, you could be as fast as me going around the track in general. You know, as long as 400 or 500 horsepower, I think you can run door to door with a pro car there for sure. But when you've got a car that's 200 horsepower, and especially if it's a 200 horsepower car that's offline or making mistakes, it's really challenging to go slow enough to stay in drift in my car.
And then for cases of the pro guys thinking about making a jump to Klutch Kickers and going to try it out, as far as like tire consumption and operating costs, how does that stack up to like some of the other bigger events with bigger, faster tracks like LS Fest or running an FD round? Like, what's your tire consumption like versus those?
So at FD, almost everywhere you go, you're going to get 2 laps out of a pair of tires. It's almost a foregone conclusion. You know, if it's Orlando or Road Atlanta or any of those places, you're going to get 2 laps. The only exceptions this year were Long Beach. We could get 3 or 4 laps out of a pair there, and same thing at St. Louis. So, in comparison, LS Fest is about the same as those. You're going to get 3 to 4 laps out of a pair of tires. If I take a brand new set and put them on at Klutch Kickers, I'm going to get probably 6 or 7 laps. So that is definitely helpful and, you know, a positive point of that track.
How many laps do you think you turn a weekend?
Before competition, I would say in the ballpark of 10 or 12, maybe 14 at the most. I try not to just beat the death out of the car because even though I'm not going through a ton of tires, it's an expensive car to operate.
Fluid, engine life.
Engine life is the big one. I tried to do the math last year, but you know, there's a cost per lap that is associated with operating a car like that.
Makes sense. I've actually heard stories of people running on basically one set almost the whole weekend too, and like people like making the 500, 600 horsepower.
Oh yeah, I know. I talked to Kevin, and I think when he was on the ATR Sport 2s, he was making, you know, 15, 16 laps on a pair of tires on the Skyline because the car doesn't make, you know, gobs and gobs of power, and that's going great for him. So I would love that. That tire consumption in my car, but maybe I'll get to the point one day where I can have a spare car too to come down and do events like this.
Right, build a little basic ATS, get a little Copart car.
That's right. That's what this one was.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, very cool. Yeah. Again, I really enjoyed the event. It sounds like you had a great time as well. I mean, it helps winning $10,000, and it's real, correct? Like you actually got paid and everything.
Yeah, I got paid, check cleared, and I'll say this too. You know, obviously this one was better for me, and getting $10,000 is a huge bonus and a huge bump for our team. You know, we have some sponsors and we have some help, but $10,000 is a big help to our program in comparison to some other programs out there. So we will definitely put it to good use and get to do more drifting with that. So that's cool, but what I was going to say is just because we won this one doesn't mean I had a bad time at the last one. It was really unfortunate that we blew up. I really felt like we had a chance to go for the win at that one, but we still had a good time. And it's always nice when you don't leave an event, you know, feeling like you got screwed out of something. And we definitely didn't feel that way. And even though we had a problem, we still had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to make it to one yet. But like watching from afar on people's like Facebook lives and looking at the coverage and stuff, this is kind of what I was hoping for a couple of years ago. It was an event like this that brought out a lot of people and got a lot of seat time, and you know it was like a kind of an equalizer. And then also like you know I'm happy that a lot of people are enjoying it and it's coming together and working out and stuff. I think once they get like, they don't have to do some big complicated live stream like FD does with all this elaborate stuff, but if they get like a simple live stream going, I think that'll be it. Like that'll be a grand slam pretty much for keeping people entertained.
Yeah. Something I did notice, I checked out their live stream afterwards. One recommendation I'd give them is to split up the live streams. I think they kept the live stream going in between top 32 and top 16. I believe, and it turned into like a 5-hour live stream or something crazy. So if they split that up, and it'll make it a lot easier for people to actually go back and watch it too. So that way, I mean that's what FD does. So
yeah, they can even just put place markers on it. You know, you kind of got a little place marker like this is where the action starts. This is downtime. whatever. So you could just jump to here. But yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it even from the live stream. Like, it looks really good. I'm pretty hyped for it.
Yeah. Again, so cool. Any final thoughts? I know you kind of threw your last 2 cents in, but like I said, I really appreciate what these guys are doing. So,
Yeah.
and again, he made it. He said he made it for the drivers. So, and it seems like that's what it's for, and it seems like you guys are having a ton of fun out there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The drivers are extremely talented. The competition's extremely tough, and it's a lot of fun. We're fortunate that someone in our area has, ponied up to do something like this. That's not common in drifting. It's super common in other forms of motorsports. When coronavirus is over and we get back to racing, somewhere in the southeast, you can go and race for $10,000 or $20,000 on a dirt track any Saturday night. So, I would love to see drifting get to that point too.
Yeah, seems like it's following other motorsports, so it'll just take some time, but it'll be there. I see it growing. So,
yep.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for talking to me about Klutch Kickers. Make sure you guys go check out their events. I doubt round 3 is going to be happening, but hopefully down the road, I would assume round 4 is still good to go. So I hope to see a lot of you guys out at round 4. Again, I've been telling drivers left and right, you need to go to this because it looks like a super fun event. And it doesn't even matter if you win, you're going to get tons of experience, tons of cool tandems, with all these kinds of pro drivers, Pro 2 drivers. So again, I absolutely love the event, and I'm always going to try and promote this event. So again, thanks guys for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.